The Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to collide with itself. Multiple universes are crashing together. Iconic characters from different timelines are meeting face to face, and at the center of it all stands one man in a metal mask with plans that could either save or destroy everything. Avengers Doomsday isn't just another superhero team-up movie. This is Marvel betting the entire multiverse saga on bringing back actors who defined an entire generation of comic book films and mixing them with the chaos of the current MCU timeline. We're talking Tobey Maguire Spider-Man standing next to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine at the TVA headquarters, while Robert Downey Jr. returns not as Iron Man but as the most dangerous villain Marvel has ever put on screen. Fresh leaked set photos show Dr. Doom wielding medieval weapons, while Chris Evans walks around in dark tactical gear with Mjolnir in his hand, looking nothing like the Captain America we said goodbye to in Endgame. Today I'm breaking down the leaked opening scene that connects Deadpool and Wolverine to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe. The behind-the-scenes production chaos that's forcing reshoots for actors they couldn't schedule the first time, and exactly how Marvel plans to use the TVA and anchor beings to set up the biggest cinematic event since Endgame. If you want to stay ahead of every twist and leaked detail coming out of this production, hit that subscribe button because this story gets more complicated every single week. So how did we get here? How did Marvel go from wrapping up the Infinity Saga with a perfect bow to building a multiverse story so massive they can't even film all the actors at the same time? The abandoned plot. Before we dive into what's happening with Avengers Doomsday, we need to talk about what almost happened in Deadpool and Wolverine, because that movie was originally supposed to be something completely different. Multiple insider sources reported during pre-production that the original script for Deadpool and Wolverine had a much bigger scope. The plot wasn't just about saving Deadpool's universe from dying because of Logan's death as an anchor being. The original concept had Deadpool and Wolverine working directly with the TVA on a mission that spanned the entire multiverse. Here's how it was supposed to work. The multiverse was actively collapsing. Universes were smashing into each other in catastrophic incursions. The TVA realized they couldn't prune their way out of this problem. Instead, they needed to preserve key individuals from across the multiverse. Anchor beings, heroes who held their universes together through sheer importance to the timeline. The TVA would recruit Deadpool and Wolverine to jump from universe to universe, collecting these anchor beings and bringing them to safety before their worlds were destroyed. The end goal was assembling all these heroes in one place so they could unite against the threat causing the collapse and hopefully find a way to restore the multiverse. Imagine Deadpool and Wolverine showing up in Tobey Maguire's universe right as it starts falling apart. Picture them arriving in the Fantastic Four's timeline seconds before an incursion wipes it out. The movie would have been a multiversal road trip with the fate of everything at stake. Deadpool would have made jokes about meeting all these legacy characters while Wolverine grumbled about the insanity of it all. But Marvel Studios changed their mind. They decided that plot was too big, too important, and too connected to the main Avengers storyline to waste on a Deadpool movie. Even though Deadpool and Wolverine became a massive success and made over $1 billion, Marvel felt that kind of story needed to be saved for Avengers Doomsday. They needed that plot to carry the weight of bringing back actors like Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, the original X-Men cast, and everyone else for the proper Avengers event. So they scaled back Deadpool and Wolverine to focus on a more contained story about saving one universe, introduced the concept of anchor beings to prepare audiences for what was coming, and put that massive multiversal collection plot on the shelf. But they didn't throw it away, they just delayed it. Now that plot is reportedly becoming the foundation for Avengers Doomsday, and the leaked opening scene suggests Marvel is doing exactly what they originally planned for Deadpool and Wolverine, but on a much bigger scale with much higher stakes. The question is whether that decision was the right call, because now they're trying to reintroduce all these concepts and characters in a movie that already has to balance dozens of storylines and actors. Opening collision. According to recent reports from insider sources, Avengers Doomsday opens with something fans have wanted to see for over 2 decades. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in the same scene together. The leaked opening scene description comes from an insider who goes by the name Majestic, and while we can't independently verify every detail, the broad strokes align with what other sources have been hinting at for months. Here's how it supposedly goes down. The movie opens in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man universe, the same world from the Sam Raimi trilogy that defined superhero movies in the early 2000s. But something is very wrong. The sky is fracturing, buildings are flickering in and out of existence. People are screaming as reality itself starts to break apart. This is an incursion, and it's happening in real time. Tobey's Peter Parker is swinging through New York trying to save people, but he can't fight physics, he can't web up a collapsing universe. At the same moment, in another universe, Deadpool and Wolverine are experiencing the same thing. Their world is colliding with another reality. Wade Wilson is making jokes about how this is a really bad time for a universe-ending event because he had plans later. Logan is doing what he does best, which is looking angry and threatening to stab whoever is responsible. The two universes are on a collision course, and right before they smash together and destroy everything, a portal opens. The TVA arrives. Agents in their tan uniforms step through holding temporal devices, and they freeze the incursion just long enough to extract the key individuals. Tobey's Spider-Man, Deadpool, and Wolverine all get pulled through TVA portals seconds before their universes would have been annihilated. They wake up at the TVA headquarters, confused, angry, and demanding answers. Mobius or another TVA official explains what's happening. The multiverse is collapsing at an accelerating rate. Incursions are happening everywhere. Universes are destroying each other. The TVA is trying to save who they can, but they're overwhelmed. And here's where it gets interesting. The TVA doesn't know what's causing the incursions to accelerate so rapidly. They have theories. Maybe it's the natural consequence of too many branched timelines, after Loki destroyed the Loom and freed the multiverse. Maybe it's something else, someone else. This is where Doctor Doom enters the picture, but the movie doesn't reveal his role immediately. That's part of the suspense. Instead, the opening scene establishes the stakes, brings together characters from completely different franchises, and sets up the central question of the movie. Why is the multiverse collapsing, and who can stop it? Now here's what makes this opening so effective if the leaks are accurate. It immediately delivers on the promise of seeing legacy characters interact. Fans who grew up with Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine get to see them share the screen in the first 5 minutes. It wastes no time explaining the threat. The multiverse is dying, and we can see it happening. It reintroduces the TVA as a key organization, which makes sense because they were central to Loki and Deadpool and Wolverine. And it creates an immediate mystery about what's causing all of this, which keeps audiences hooked. But there's one element that some fans think is missing from this leaked opening, and it's a big one. Where's Doctor Doom? The Doom question. If Avengers Doomsday is named after Doctor Doom, you'd expect him to show up in the opening scene the same way Thanos appeared at the beginning of Infinity War. In that movie, Thanos immediately established himself as the most dangerous threat the Avengers had ever faced by beating the Hulk into submission, killing Loki, and destroying the Asgardian refugee ship before the title card even appeared. It was brutal, shocking, and made it clear that this villain was different. So why wouldn't Doom get the same treatment? Here's where the strategy might be different. According to other reports from insiders, Doctor Doom doesn't reveal himself as the villain immediately. For roughly the first half of Avengers Doomsday, Doom presents himself as a hero. He positions himself as someone trying to help the Avengers and the TVA stop the incursions. He offers his genius-level intellect, his mastery of both science and sorcery, and his resources to solve the crisis. The Avengers are desperate, the multiverse is collapsing, and here comes this brilliant man in a mask offering solutions. Why wouldn't they work with him? This makes Doom incredibly dangerous because he's not just powerful, he's manipulative. In the comics, Doctor Doom is often portrayed as someone who genuinely believes he's the hero of his own story. He thinks the world would be better off under his rule because he's smarter than everyone else and has the vision to create a perfect society. He's not wrong about being a genius. Reed Richards might edge him out in raw intelligence, but Doom combines intellect with magical ability and technological advancement in ways no one else can. He's a scientist who can cast spells. He builds suits of armor that rival Iron Man's technology while also summoning demons. That combination makes him one of the most versatile and dangerous characters in Marvel Comics. So if Doom is playing the long game in Avengers Doomsday, the opening scene might not feature him at all. Instead, we see the chaos of the collapsing multiverse, the TVA scrambling to save people, and heroes from different universes trying to figure out what's happening. Then later, after the audience is invested in the mystery, Doom appears offering help. He probably shows up with knowledge about incursions that no one else has. He might save a group of heroes from a collapsing universe to earn their trust. He presents himself as an ally while secretly working toward his own goals. Those goals likely involve eliminating people who have caused incursions, which would include several of the Avengers. Remember, Doctor Strange caused an incursion in Multiverse of Madness when he dreamed dreamwalked into another universe. That action directly led to the destruction of that universe's version of the Illuminati. If Doom is going around killing people responsible for incursions as a way to stabilize the multiverse, Strange would be high on his list. This creates a fascinating moral dilemma. Is Doom actually wrong? If someone caused an incursion that destroyed an entire universe, doesn't that make them responsible for trillions of deaths? Shouldn't they face consequences? Doom can argue he's doing what's necessary to save the multiverse while the Avengers are protecting their friends, even if those friends are guilty of cosmic-level crimes. It's the kind of complex villain motivation that makes for great storytelling, and it's very different from Thanos, who was just obsessed with balance and killing half of all life. But this also means the opening scene needs to plant seeds about incursions and who might be responsible without revealing Doom's plan. That's why having Tobey's Spider-Man universe collide with Deadpool and Wolverine's universe works so well. It shows audiences what an incursion looks like. It demonstrates the scale of the threat, and it raises questions about what's causing them without giving away the answer. However, some fans argue that the opening absolutely needs to show Doom in some capacity, even if he's not revealed as the villain yet. Maybe a quick shot of him observing the chaos from his castle. Maybe a scene of him consulting with the TVA under the guise of helping them. Something to establish his presence so he doesn't feel tacked on later. The challenge Marvel faces is balancing fan expectations with narrative surprise. Everyone knows Robert Downey Jr. is playing Dr. Doom. That casting was announced at Comic-Con, and it's the biggest selling point of the movie. But if you put him front and center immediately, you lose the opportunity to build mystery and tension around his character. It's a tough balance, and we won't know if they got it right until the movie releases. But one thing is certain. Doom needs to feel like a genuine threat, not just because he's played by Robert Downey Jr., but because the story earns that threat through his actions and intelligence. And speaking of Robert Downey Jr., the leaked set photos are giving us our first real look at what his version of Doom actually looks like. Medieval Menace set photos from the Avengers Doomsday production have been leaking online for weeks, and they're giving fans their first glimpse of how Marvel is bringing Dr. Doom to life. The photos show Robert Downey Jr. in full Doom costume, and it's not what a lot of people expected. Instead of a sleek, futuristic armor suit that looks like a dark version of Iron Man, Doom's costume has a distinctly medieval aesthetic. The armor is layered metal plates that look hand-forged, almost like something a knight would wear in the 1500s. The iconic metal mask is there, covering his entire face, but it's less polished and more brutal-looking than some comic interpretations. It looks functional, like something designed for combat rather than just intimidation. And here's the part that has fans excited. In several of the leaked photos, Doom is carrying a sword and shield. Not laser weapons, not repulsor technology, an actual medieval sword and a large metal shield. This is a fascinating choice because it emphasizes the duality of Doom's character. He's a man who exists between two worlds. He's the ruler of Latveria, a fictional Eastern European country that's portrayed in the comics as stuck in a quasi-medieval social structure with Doom as its absolute monarch. He lives in a castle, his people treat him like a king, and he rules with an iron fist. But he's also a genius scientist and sorcerer who can hold his own against the smartest heroes and the most powerful magic users in the Marvel universe. The sword and shield represent the medieval traditional side of his character. The armor likely contains advanced technology that represents his scientific genius. And his knowledge of sorcery adds a third layer that makes him unpredictable. You can't just hack his tech because he'll blast you with a magic spell. You can't just use magic against him because his armor will protect him with science. This makes him nearly impossible to counter because he has answers to every type of threat. The leaked photos also show Doom standing near what appears to be a massive castle set, which confirms that we'll be seeing his home base. In the comics, Castle Doom is one of the most heavily fortified locations on Earth, protected by both advanced technology and magical wards. It's also where Doom keeps his most dangerous weapons and experiments. If the movie includes scenes at Castle Doom, it opens up possibilities for really visually striking sequences. Imagine the Avengers having to assault a medieval castle that's defended by robots, force fields, and summoned creatures. Imagine Doom standing on the battlements with his sword and shield, looking every bit the Dark Lord from a fantasy story, while also coordinating drone strikes and energy weapons. That contrast between old and new magic and science is what makes Doom such a compelling character. The set photos also reveal that Chris Evans is definitely in this movie, and his appearance has fans asking a lot of questions. Evans is shown wearing dark civilian clothes, not a Captain America suit. He's got longer hair and a beard, giving him a rougher, more world-weary appearance. And in his hand is Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. This confirms that Steve Rogers is still worthy of wielding the hammer, which makes sense given his character. Being worthy to lift Mjolnir requires selflessness, courage, and a righteous heart.
Steve Rogers proved he had all of that in Endgame when he picked up the hammer during the final battle against Thanos. The fact that he still has it and can still use it suggests he's been carrying it since then. But here's the question everyone is asking. Where has Steve Rogers been and what has he been doing since Endgame? We know he went back in time to return the Infinity Stones and live a life with Peggy Carter. We know he came back as an old man and passed his shield to Sam Wilson. But what happened during those years he spent in the past? Did he just retire and live quietly, or did he continue being a hero in secret? There were reports years ago that Marvel was developing a show or series of projects that would follow Steve Rogers as Nomad, his superhero identity when he operated without the Captain America mantle. Nomad was a storyline from the comics where Steve Rogers became disillusioned with the American government and struck out on his own as a wandering hero. The idea was that the Disney Plus show would follow old Steve, or possibly a younger version, through flashbacks as he returned the Infinity Stones and dealt with various threats across time. That show never materialized, but it seems like Avengers Doomsday might be incorporating elements of that story. The dark clothes, the longer hair, the fact that he's wielding Mjolnir instead of the shield, all of it points to Steve Rogers operating as something other than the traditional Captain America. He's still a hero, still worthy, but he's also outside the system. This fits with the Nomad identity, and it gives Marvel a chance to explore what happened to Steve during those missing years without dedicating an entire show to it. If the movie includes flashbacks or explanations about Steve's time-traveling adventures, it could add a lot of emotional weight to his character and give fans closure on one of the MCU's most beloved heroes. But it also raises concerns about how many storylines Avengers Doomsday is trying to juggle at once, which brings us to one of the biggest challenges the production is facing: scheduling nightmare. Making a movie with dozens of A-list actors is logistically complicated under the best circumstances. Making a movie with dozens of A-list actors who all have conflicting schedules and commitments to other projects is nearly impossible. And yet, that's exactly what Marvel is trying to do with Avengers Doomsday. According to recent reports, the production filmed most of the principal photography in 2024, but they weren't able to get every actor they needed during that window. Scheduling conflicts meant that some key cast members simply couldn't make it to set when Marvel needed them. So now Marvel is planning reshoots in April of 2025 specifically to film scenes with actors they missed the first time around. This isn't unusual for Marvel. They've done extensive reshoots on almost every major film, and those reshoots often improve the final product by allowing the filmmakers to address pacing issues, add connective tissue between scenes, or incorporate new ideas. But what's interesting about the Avengers Doomsday reshoots is that they're specifically targeting actors who couldn't be there for the original shoot. According to insider reports, 4 actors who are expected to appear in the movie but haven't been confirmed yet are Halle Berry as Storm, Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, and Teyonah Parris as Monica Rambeau. None of these 4 were available during the main production window, so Marvel is reportedly scheduling time in April to bring them in and film their scenes. Let's talk about why each of these characters matters. Storm and Jean Grey are part of the original X-Men cast from the early 2000s Fox films. Those movies introduced an entire generation of fans to the X-Men, and Halle Berry and Famke Janssen became iconic in their roles. If Marvel is bringing back Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, it makes sense that they'd also want to bring back other legacy X-Men characters. The problem is that both Halle Berry and Famke Janssen are busy actors with their own projects and commitments. Coordinating their schedules with a production as massive as Avengers Doomsday is incredibly difficult. If Marvel can't get them for the April reshoots, there's a real possibility that Storm and Jean Grey won't appear in the movie at all. That would be a huge missed opportunity because fans want to see the original X-Men team reunited on screen one more time. There's also a darker possibility. The leaked X-Men footage that's supposedly appearing before screenings of Captain America: Brave New World shows Cyclops standing in rubble with a destroyed Sentinel in the background. This suggests that something catastrophic happened to the X-Men universe, possibly a massive Sentinel attack that wiped out most of the team. If Storm and Jean Grey aren't in Avengers Doomsday, it might be because their characters died during that attack. Marvel could explain their absence by saying they didn't survive whatever event is shown in that footage. That would be a disappointing way to handle those characters, but it's a possibility if the scheduling doesn't work out. Now let's talk about Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau. These two characters are absolutely essential to Avengers Doomsday from a continuity standpoint. The ending of the Marvels set up a major plot thread that ties directly into the multiverse saga. At the end of that movie, Monica Rambeau gets trapped in an alternate universe after closing a rift between realities. She wakes up in a universe where the X-Men exist, and she's greeted by Hank McCoy, also known as Beast, who mentions that Charles Xavier wants to see her. This was a huge moment because it confirmed that the X-Men exist in the MCU multiverse and that Monica is now stuck in their universe. That post-credit scene was clearly setting up Avengers Doomsday, or at least the multiverse storyline that Doomsday is part of. If Monica and Captain Marvel aren't in Avengers Doomsday, that entire plot thread is left hanging. How does Monica get back to her universe? What happens when Captain Marvel realizes her friend is missing? How do the X-Men react to someone from another universe showing up in their world? All of these questions need answers, and the logical place to answer them is in Avengers Doomsday. Marvel could technically save those answers for Secret Wars, but that would feel like a disservice to the story they set up in the Marvels. It would also frustrate fans who watched that post-credit scene and expected it to pay off sooner rather than later. The good news is that Brie Larson and Teyonah Parris are both still active in the MCU and presumably interested in continuing their characters' stories. The challenge is just getting them on set at a time that works with their schedules and Marvel's production timeline. If the April reshoots can accommodate them, then Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau will likely have significant roles in Avengers Doomsday. If not, Marvel will have to figure out a way to explain their absence, which will be difficult to do without creating plot holes. The broader issue here is that Marvel is trying to make a movie that rivals Infinity War and Endgame in scope and scale, but they're doing it with even more characters from even more franchises. Infinity War and Endgame primarily dealt with characters who were already established in the MCU. Yes, they brought in some new faces like Captain Marvel, but the core cast was consistent. Avengers Doomsday is trying to merge the current MCU with legacy characters from Fox's X-Men films, Sony's Spider-Man films, and potentially other franchises as well. That's a logistical nightmare, and it's no surprise that they can't get everyone on set at the same time. The real test will be whether Marvel can make all of these different pieces fit together in a way that feels coherent and satisfying. Infinity War worked because the Russo brothers and the writers understood how to balance dozens of characters and give each of them meaningful moments without letting the story become cluttered. Endgame worked because it paid off storylines that had been building for over a decade. Avengers Doomsday needs to do both of those things while also introducing new characters, explaining multiverse mechanics, and setting up an even bigger story in Secret Wars. That's an enormous challenge, but Marvel has proven they can pull off the seemingly impossible before. Whether they can do it again remains to be seen, but the stakes have never been higher. And that brings us to the biggest question hanging over this entire production, the anchor solution. At the heart of Avengers Doomsday is a concept that Marvel introduced in Deadpool and Wolverine but didn't fully explore: anchor beings. In Deadpool and Wolverine, we learned that every universe has an anchor being, a person who is so important to that timeline that if they die, the entire universe begins to decay. In Deadpool's universe, Wolverine was the anchor being. When he died in Logan, the timeline started falling apart. The TVA decided to prune that universe because it was dying anyway, which kicked off the entire plot of Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool tried to replace his universe's dead Wolverine with a variant from another timeline, which didn't work the way he hoped. Eventually, Deadpool and Wolverine worked together to save Deadpool's universe from being destroyed, and the timeline was restored. But the movie left a lot of questions unanswered. What makes someone an anchor being? Is it something intrinsic to their character, or is it just random? Can a universe have more than one anchor being? And most importantly, if an anchor being dies, is there any way to replace them or prevent the universe from collapsing? These questions are going to be central to Avengers Doomsday because the multiverse is collapsing, and the TVA is apparently trying to save anchor beings from universes that are being destroyed by incursions. This connects directly back to the abandoned plot from the original Deadpool and Wolverine script. The idea was that Deadpool and Wolverine would go around collecting important people from dying universes. Those people were anchor beings or individuals crucial to the multiverse's survival. Now it seems like that idea is being executed in Avengers Doomsday on a much larger scale. Instead of just Deadpool and Wolverine collecting people, the TVA is pulling heroes from across the multiverse and bringing them together. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is probably an anchor being for his universe. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine might be an anchor being for another timeline. The Fantastic Four could be anchor beings for their universe. If all of these people are being saved from incursions and brought together, the question becomes, what do they do next? The TVA can't save every universe. The multiverse is too big, and incursions are happening too fast. So maybe the solution isn't to stop the incursions. Maybe the solution is to create a new stable universe using anchor beings from all the dying timelines. This is where Secret Wars comes into play. In the comics, Secret Wars involves Doctor Doom using the power of the Beyonders to create Battleworld, a patchwork planet made up of pieces of different destroyed universes. Doom rules over Battleworld as a god, having saved what he could from the multiverse collapse. Eventually, Reed Richards and other heroes challenge Doom and use the Beyonders' power to restore the multiverse. The MCU version will obviously be different, but the core concept might be similar. If the multiverse in the MCU is collapsing and can't be saved, maybe Doctor Doom creates a new singular universe by combining the best parts of different timelines. He saves the anchor beings, preserves key moments and places, and rebuilds reality according to his vision. That would make him both the villain and the savior. He destroyed the multiverse, but he also saved what he could from total annihilation. The heroes would then have to decide whether they accept Doom's new reality or try to restore the original multiverse. That decision would drive the plot of Secret Wars and give the story real emotional weight. Do you accept a stable but imperfect world ruled by a dictator, or do you fight for freedom, even if it means risking everything? But here's where the anchor being concept gets really interesting. If the MCU ends Secret Wars by restoring the multiverse, they'll need new anchor beings for the timelines they bring back. Maybe the surviving heroes become the new anchor beings. Maybe Peter Parker becomes the anchor being for a restored universe. Maybe the Fantastic Four anchor a new timeline. This would allow Marvel to soft reboot the MCU without erasing everything that came before. They could say that after Secret Wars, the multiverse was restored, but it's different now. New anchor beings mean new possibilities. Different versions of characters can exist. The timeline is malleable in a way it wasn't before. This gives Marvel infinite creative flexibility going forward. They can introduce new actors for established characters by saying they're from different timelines. They can bring back legacy characters whenever they want. They can tell stories that contradict previous continuity and explain it as a result of the multiverse restoration. It's a brilliant narrative solution to the problem of maintaining a shared universe for decades. Eventually, continuity becomes so complicated that it's hard for new audiences to jump in. By using Secret Wars to reset certain elements while keeping others, Marvel can have their cake and eat it too. But for that plan to work, Avengers Doomsday has to nail the setup. It has to make audiences care about anchor beings. It has to make the threat of the multiverse collapse feel real and terrifying. It has to introduce Doctor Doom as a credible threat who can stand alongside or even surpass Thanos as the ultimate villain. And it has to bring together characters from across decades of Marvel films in a way that feels earned and satisfying. That's an incredibly tall order, and there are a lot of ways it could go wrong. If the movie spends too much time on fan service and not enough on story, it'll feel hollow. If the multiverse rules are too complicated, audiences will get confused. If Doctor Doom doesn't live up to the hype, the entire movie falls apart. But if Marvel pulls it off, Avengers Doomsday could be the most ambitious and rewarding crossover event in film history. It could justify everything Marvel has been building towards since Endgame and set up an ending to the multiverse saga that rivals or surpasses the Infinity Saga's conclusion. The pieces are all there. Legacy characters like Tobey Maguire and Hugh Jackman, current MCU heroes dealing with the consequences of their actions, a villain in Doctor Doom who is both terrifying and philosophically complex, the TVA as a connective tissue between different timelines, and the anchor being concept as a potential solution to the multiverse collapse. Now it's just a question of whether Marvel can assemble those pieces into a coherent and emotionally resonant story. Based on the leaked information, the set photos, and the insider reports, it seems like they're trying to do exactly that. Whether they succeed won't be clear until Avengers Doomsday hits theaters in May of 2026. But one thing is certain, the MCU is swinging for the fences and the entire future of the franchise depends on whether they connect.